God is going to use whatever is happening in that season for the next.
Yeah.
And so you're not always going to be stuck in that uncomfortable season.
Right.
Unless you don't break the cycle.
Oh. A lot of times people are always so quick to point the finger and to blame other people or blame God or whatever. We don't want to turn the finger back around and point it at us when we're always the common denominator.
Yeah, Hunter's saying that we're done having kids after this one again. Why is that?
Maybe we'll have 15. You can ever tell.
Please, no. I felt on my heart today to talk about just the time and seasons of things spiritually. So today is the last episode of the Salty Podcast of season 1. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Salty Podcast. I'm your host, Devin. And today me and Hunter are just here. We're going to have a good conversation.
We're going to do it.
How are you today?
I'm going.
You've not felt good the past few days.
No, I have not.
So, sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right.
I'm glad I haven't got in whatever you have been feeling.
Yeah.
So.
It's just sinus stuff because my allergy, I have like so bad seasonal allergies. So then I feel like every time I have like a flare up, then it just gets in my sinuses and then it just kind of turns into like a sinus infection and then it just.
And really, whenever I'm sick like that, it like ruins my mood.
Yeah.
It's just hard to be, because you don't feel like yourself.
Right.
I wanted to kind of debrief last week's episode. That was so good.
With Madison?
Yes.
Yeah. That was probably my favorite episode so far.
Yeah. And you were actually in the room with us when we were filming. That was just so good. And I love her.
Yeah, it was great.
So if y'all haven't listened to last week's episode, we went to Nashville. I met Madison Watkins. She was on American Idol, and she just gives her story, and we just talk back and forth, and she would ask me questions, and it was just really good. So you should go listen to that if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah,
but
go check it out.
So I've been convicted lately.
Okay.
So the other day I was getting ready, and you know how it's common to talk about seasons as a Christian?
Yeah.
Like you're going to go through a new season, different seasons. There's a season for this and season that, and it's biblical. Like there are biblical spiritual seasons. So this was actually before the sermon Sunday about how there's seasons and cycles.
Yeah.
And just because you are in a new season doesn't mean you need to be in the same cycle. You know what I mean? Or you can take a cycle into a new season, which that's good. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was getting dressed and going off the season thing. In my head, I'm like, I think I'm just in a spiritually dry season. Because you hear that a lot too. It's like sometimes, you feel really full of the Spirit, all of this, and then sometimes you're going to go through a dry season.
Yeah.
And in that, you know what immediately came in my head? And I'm like, okay, that was from the Lord.
What?
Do not quench the Spirit.
Yeah.
Like it was like a conversation I was having internally. And then I was like praying, talking to Jesus, and just going back and forth. And then he said that. And it wasn't like audible, but it was like, I knew it was from him.
I know what you mean.
And I was like, oh my gosh, wait. I am in a spiritually dry season because I have quenched the Spirit.
Yeah.
Like I have.
Yeah.
It's not that I've been pouring in. And so saying all that to say is, yes, there are seasons that are spiritually dry. But for me, I think a lot of times we blame things and be like, well, it's just a dry season. But it's like, what are you doing?
Well, spiritually dry seasons, I think, is because we're not putting into it what we should be putting into it.
Yeah.
It's like you heard people say, I found the Lord or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't find the Lord because he wasn't lost. Mm-hmm. He found you, Mm-hmm. So it's like just that. Like you may go through spells where you spend so much time like reading in his word or in prayer or, being in the Spirit for a month. And then the next month you do, 10% of the time you did you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that then, cause I'm like kind of doing that right now. I feel like but it's just, we've been so busy. We've been traveling so much for like the month of April that it's been hard for me to spend as much time as I have been. Mm-hmm. So exactly that, like I feel Like, I feel like I could say I'm in a spiritually dry season, but it's not his fault.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's just the time and the
Yeah.
quenching the spirit. And so in what ways? Because that's in 1 Thessalonians, I think. Let me look.
Dang, are you just busting that out
Well, I
like
looked at
that?
it.
Or
Yeah, 1 Thessalonians 5:19. Do not quench the spirit. And so also, so that happened. We planted our new flower bed. I really wanted hydrangeas. And so part of that is, okay, that's, you want the beautiful thing,
yeah.
but it takes work. You know, we're having to go out there and water it every day, or hunters. But, you know, you've asked me to. And so that one day I went out there and did it by myself. Like,
Yeah.
why are you laughing? Listen.
Oh, that's funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
You were playing with Ivy, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. So I had that alone time, and I was just sitting there watering. And it took a little bit for each one that you had to sit there and actually water
it.
And I'm like, see, for this, because right now it's just stems and a few leaves. And I'm like, it's going to be so beautiful when it's done. But it's going to take some watering. Yep. It's going to take some pruning out the weeds and getting rid of all that. And like, yes, it has potential. It has the potential to be beautiful. But if we quench it, it's going to die.
Yeah.
And so all of that was playing together in what God has been teaching me lately. And how, you know, in my head, I strive to be as close as I can to God. And, you know, there's seasons that I am, because I'm putting in the work. I'm spending that time with him. But then when I feel that lack of relationship, and then that's when you're like, oh, why is it so quiet? Why? It's because I'm quenching the spirit.
Yeah.
Quenching the spirit. Like, what does that mean? Like, if people are listening, like, okay, what does that mean? Quenching. It sounds so fancy.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of, I'm going to look up the definition of quench.
Okay. Well, while you do that, isn't that cool though?
Yeah.
I mean, that is so true. And so the flower analogy, same thing, is same for us. In our relationship with him. And every day that we went out there to water, it's like a new leaf was on there every day. So it's not that you just have this,
overnight success
or overnight, like I'm talking about spiritually, like relationship with Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
You get saved, boom, bada boom. It's going to take work. It's going to take putting, a relationship is work. And the more, that's the sanctification process. The more you're in a relationship with him, the more it should grow. And all of that. And of course, everything comes with its challenges. There's days I don't want to go out there, or you don't want to go out there and water, because you're like, oh, that's going to take work.
Yep.
But it ends up being worth it. You know what I mean?
Definitely. So when I think of the word quench, I think of like you quench your thirst.
Right.
But there's two definitions.
Okay.
The other one is extinguish. So that would be what it means here.
In biblical terms?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Extinguish.
See, I thought it meant I was always
Quenching
you're
your
dehydrating your relationship with the Lord.
No, that's not. That would be backwards.
Okay. My head just went everywhere. What?
To me, it would be quench, like extinguish, like you're putting him out. You're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay. I mean, for me, it's just like getting in the word intentionally, you know, like sitting that time to have my quiet time and just doing it, you know. And it's like, for me, that's become, I don't know if habit is the right word, because it's not really a habit. Like, I look forward to doing it, you know, like I don't do it to check off a box anymore.
Because there is a fine line in that.
You're right.
And like how some Christians become, it's like just a checklist. It's like he doesn't want to be a part of your checklist. So it's not that. But sometimes it's starting in a practical way will help you fall in love. Like, to be honest, I'd never liked to read the Bible, but he made me like it. Yeah. Because
I don't like reading anything.
I did make it practical, but I was like, okay, I just need to get in the Word.
Yeah.
But once I was in the Word and it was coming alive to me, because it is living, then I would fall in love with the Word.
Yeah.
But it took the practical steps to do that. Because I'm not a reader. I wasn't a reader.
Yeah.
Until like
last
2 years ago. Yeah. So that's a snippet about what I was convicted on. I was kind of, I was just like blaming it on, it's just the season I'm in.
Yeah.
But then he was like, all right, honey, but what are you doing to make you feel that way or to do that? And so because I already said the plant analogy, but I mean, if we extinguished the water that it needs to thrive and grow, eventually it's going to die.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, like you can think of everything in life like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes work to do anything and everything, to make anything better. You can't do that. It takes work,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it's like, that's why I so much enjoy, and I think it's like a little, I don't want to say hard for you to understand. I'm like changing the subject here
Yeah,
just a
that's
tad,
totally fine.
not a whole lot. But like doing that to my blue truck, you know, just things like that, like putting in the time to like make something better and to see like the finished product is like, that's why I did not want to go out there and water those plants so much, you know, as much as I did when we had the sod, you know, watering that, but like to put that time into it and to see like what, not necessarily what you've created, I guess, but what you've, I mean, in some cases, yeah, but what you have like spent all this time working on, and to see it grow and thrive and be beautiful, like whatever it is, whether it's like a living thing like the plants, or whether it's you're working on something like my truck out there, you know,
Yeah.
to see that end result, it's just, to me, it's worth all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Because like when you're in that moment, in that season of work,
Yeah.
because you're not seeing the result yet, you get in your head and you're like, "Oh, do I want to do this? Do I not?" But then like to know it's fruitful at the end makes you push through.
Well, yes. And what I was going to say is that's why heaven rejoices, like when we live for Christ, because think about all the work that it takes to make a human that God does. You know what I'm saying? The work that he created the world, and for every person and every soul that like dedicates their life to him, they rejoice because it's,
Wait, that's good.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I've never thought of that or
Yeah.
heard that before.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they?
Right.
Because it's just like anything else. Like we're in the same scenario, like us watering these plants.
Mm-hmm.
Like we put the time and the work in to make it beautiful. And like if we would have put all that time and work in and they died, we would have been like, oh, that sucks, you know?
Oh, wait. Yeah.
But like,
and imagine Jesus,
yeah.
how they feel about us when we don't choose him. And we,
Right.
like, it's sad.
Yeah.
It breaks his heart.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sitting on that one for a minute. That's good.
Yeah.
Going back to like seasons and cycles, the sermon Sunday was so good. And for me, it's almost like, you know, that kind of stuff. You hear stuff and you're like, well, yeah, but I don't know. It really resonated with me about how there are different seasons. You're going to go through a happy season, a sad season, like things happen in your life. There's going to be nothing going wrong. Or then you go through a season and a family member dies and you're grieving. There's always these seasons that we're going to walk through. So we know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are what we call new seasons. And you're like, oh, great. Well, or you're encouraging somebody, this is just a season. You'll get out of this season soon. But what really resonated with me was the cycles, how there's a difference between a season and a cycle. And you could walk through all those seasons living in the same cycle.
You can go through different seasons in the same cycle and never get out of the same cycle, because probably the easiest way to describe it, I think, would be like if you're not putting him first in things, like then you let your emotions control you, whether it's good or bad, you know, whether it's like you said, family member, or maybe you lose your job or get a new job, or maybe you get a raise, win the lottery. You know what I'm saying? Like anything like that, it's new seasons, and it may feel like, oh, like my life is over, or, oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But like, if you're not living for the Lord, there's always going to be that feeling of emptiness, like when the new wears off.
Yeah. So you can carry that into the seasons.
You can carry that into each and every season, whether it's good or bad, but you're still in that same cycle of when this wears off, I'm still empty. You know?
Yeah, that's good. And just even an example that comes to my mind is, say the feeling of not enough, which that is, if you're in a cycle of all these things that make you feel, you just always feel worn down and stuff, and you go through all those seasons, and so all good could be happening around you. You could see the blessings of the Lord and all this, but if you haven't broken the cycle of feeling not enough, you're not ever going to truly receive the true blessing that's going around you.
Yeah.
Or see what really the Lord is doing in that season, because you're still stuck in that cycle of always feeling not enough. Or it could be like an attitude problem too.
Yeah.
If you're carrying a certain attitude and you're just like, identify with that and be like, oh, well, that's just how the Lord made me. He created me this way.
Yeah.
And
sure.
so that cycle never gets broken. So you're carrying that into these seasons, and that's limiting. I feel like could be what he was intending for a season.
Yeah.
It's being limited because you're still in a cycle.
Yeah.
I hope this makes sense.
Yeah. Another way that I like to think about things like that is if you're going through something or lots of things, you're going through these seasons and something continuously happens and whatever, and you're blaming, like there's always an excuse, and it could be for whatever. I mean, sometimes there's things that happens that's not your fault. Okay. So don't take that the wrong way. But a lot of times people are always so quick to point the finger and to blame other people or blame God or whatever. But a lot of times we don't want to turn the finger back around and point it at us when we're always the common denominator for like things that are happening.
Yeah.
So.
Right. That's, and an example is addiction. So if you don't break the cycle of addiction and you carry that into these new seasons, it's never 100% broken. Yeah, you might have small seasons in those seasons that you're like, oh, it's free.
Right.
I'm done. But it wasn't completely broken. How did he explain? I'm asking because I can't remember, or you can maybe answer this. Breaking cycles. Like how, I guess it depends on what it is, but what would you say? Like, how do you break cycles?
I mean, yeah, probably depends on what it is in a way, but for the most part, things that are like generationally attached to you, or even not. Maybe you're the first generation that it started with, and you're somebody that's been doing something your whole life, whether it's like addiction to whatever, that's hard to do on your own, whether that is, there's an outside force that's going to have to help you. And it's probably more than one. So like, obviously God is the first one, like prayer, all that, creating boundaries for yourself and having accountability.
Yeah. Self-reflection is, I think, a big step in asking the Holy Spirit to reveal to you things. 'Cause there's things that I don't even realize about myself until it's revealed. I'm like, oh wait, I don't like that about myself.
Yeah.
And then it's like you have to always self-reflect, because like you said, a lot of times we don't even look at ourself. We look at everything else and everyone else and put the blame on that. And then a lot of times it's just us. It's how our hearts are and how we perceive things and all of that, our perception. I am super glad that I've learned to self-reflect, and that in and of itself was putting pride down.
Yeah.
And in the seasons of all the different seasons you can think of, but I went through one last year, and I feel like some, seasons are good. Some can feel good. They're fruitful. You see the fruit that's produced in your working season and all of that. And also everybody's seasons are not going to line up. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes I've gotten in the mindset or whatever, if I'm in a fruitful season, or okay, maybe I see someone in a fruitful season. I'm like, wow, like it makes I can either be jealous and not see it as what it is because I'm in the working season. I'm in the pruning season, which can be uncomfortable, which can be painful and all that. But I see someone else in the blessing season or whatever.
Yeah.
I hope this is making sense. I'm just talking. I don't.
No, you're good, hon.
Okay.
Just keep going.
No,
you forgot.
No.
No.
But I could be in the painful season. And so then if you compare, I feel like the enemy wants us to compare.
Yeah.
And because then we're like, well, God, where's my blessing? Or where's this or that? And that's just a me thing. Me mindset. So
sure.
anyways, that is just a little thought is don't compare the season you're in to someone else. Or don't compare, but rejoice for that person because you know your season of bloom is coming soon.
Right.
You know? And some can coincide together. But I last year, I was going through a season of, I was close to God. I wasn't quenching the spirit as we talked about. I was in the word a lot. I felt very close to him.
Yeah.
But it was a season of like pain and I was very uncomfortable. And it was like, I classified it as a pruning season. And he revealed that to me a lot. Like I was reading verses about pruning and all of that. And basically pruning is going back to flower beds or whatever. You know, sometimes a beautiful flower grows thorns or whatever. And to prune, you have to pluck off things, pluck off things that would kill it.
Yeah.
And so it can continue to grow. And for me, it can hurt. I mean, imagine somebody plucking stuff off of you, be like, "Oh, your growth's being stunted. Let me pluck this off of you," and it can be painful, you know, or uncomfortable. And that can look like people in your life, taking people out of your life, or friendships, even family, or close relationships, or habits, anything like that. God was revealing things to me in that I just had to allow him to work. And it took work on me too. Like it was me having to put up boundaries or seeing self-reflecting of things about myself that I had to break the cycle of.
Yeah.
Okay. So all that said, I do want to back it up with scripture, just like talking about seasons and seasons being time. And there's different Bible versions that actually say seasons and then some that use time. Same thing.
Yeah.
A time for everything. This is Ecclesiastes 3. I'm just going to read that whole snippet real quick.
Go ahead.
For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Like that, I love that scripture about all of that. And that everything we touched on, it's basically there's a time for plant and then a time to pluck and then, you know, all that.
Yeah.
But I read something and it was like, the first step to flourishing in the season you're in is to recognize the season you're in.
Yeah.
If you're in a really hard season, recognizing that you're just in that season because, say, it's a time of pruning. It's time kind of for it to be uncomfortable and the uncomfortable and all that. Instead of being in a negative mindset about it all and self-pitying and having a negative connotation of it all, be like, okay, this is for a reason and a season. And so something is God is going to use whatever is happening in that season for the next.
Yeah.
And so you're not always going to be stuck in that uncomfortable season.
Right.
Unless you don't break the cycle.
Oh.
That's good. That just came to me. You know? Because sometimes if you're not breaking a cycle, what if you don't recognize the season that God has you in is actually for a bigger blessing than you can ever see?
Yeah.
And I don't mean materialistic blessings. Like, we're not talking about that. It's just spiritual blessings. Like, what if there's somebody that you're supposed to be ministering in that is going to come to know the Lord, but because you're stuck in a cycle, you can't see that? Or whatever it is, or for you, for your spiritual walk, the sanctification process is kind of on a halt.
Right.
Because you're stuck in a cycle, and so you're missing that blessing right then.
Yeah.
So
we should always like pray for clarity in like what we're going through and what he'll have for us.
Yeah.
And his plan for us.
Like, and you know how people are like, why God is this happening?
Yeah.
That's good. It's good to ask him questions. If you're aggravated or upset with something's going on, talk to him about it.
Yeah.
That in of itself that's a relationship.
Right.
You have to have those conversations, and I guarantee you he's going to reveal it if you allow him. But if you push him away because you think that he's doing it because he's mad or he's whatever, or that's what the enemy wants you to do, is push him away.
Yeah.
But if you can ask because you like genuinely, you trust him.
Yeah.
Just because you trust him doesn't mean you can't be asking him questions.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a difference in like trusting him and having conversation and just blaming him,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So you got to be careful with that one. But, you know, I was going to say something. I forgot. What do you call it when you're have sympathy pregnancy brain?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Hunter's saying that we're done having kids after this one again. Why is that? You did this exact thing when we had Ivy, or during pregnancy with Ivy.
Maybe we'll have 15. You can remember till.
Please, no. No, but for real, why? What's your mindset with all that right now?
I don't know. I just hate seeing you go through like what you have to go through, you know, like because of your pre-existing health conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I just worry that, you know, something else will happen. And it's just constantly like your blood sugar's been so bad recently. And we've been like trying to figure that out. And it's just, I mean, that's a good example of like, I should give all my worries and anxieties, cast them on him. But I mean, and I do. It's not like I'm losing sleep over it or something like that, you know, but it is just concerning about you and him now. And
I get that.
yeah.
I mean, it's sweet
Yeah.
that you care that much, obviously, about me and my health and everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like as hard as it has been lately, and like how last night, I'll have moments where I'm fine, and then moments where it's like a number game if my blood sugar has been so bad, and I'm just like, I don't understand. I'm trying everything. It's frustrating whenever I'm trying my best
Right.
and like it's not working.
That's what I'm saying. It would be different if you were, you know, eating ice cream every night and being like, oh, my blood sugar's 300. Like, oh, this sucks, you know? But I mean, you're not.
Yeah.
You know, and you haven't. It's like you can't figure it out. I mean, it's because you're pregnant. Like it's because you're pregnant and the placenta, all the stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So when you're not pregnant anymore, it'll be better, easier. But you know what I mean? That's just the issue. It's like, I don't know. I just don't want something to happen to either one of y'all.
Right.
And
that's a rational fear to have. Like it's okay to feel that. That doesn't mean you're not trusting God and stuff. But it does make you have to, same way whenever we discussed about miscarriage and the fear of having a baby after miscarriage and all that. And even with Ivy, and just to know that they are his before they are ours. Mm-hmm. I am his before I am your wife.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And so.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you for sure. And it's not like, I feel like to try to have another one is almost like, I really don't want this to come across bad, but is almost like an unnecessary like risk. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I agree and disagree with that.
I mean, and what I mean is like, yes, like if you were to get pregnant again after this, it would be great. You know, if like everything's fine, like you're fine, the baby's fine, everything's great, like we have a third baby, like we're gonna look. It's not that. It's not that it's just like with all of your health stuff and like the other stuff that you've had like in your pregnancy with Ivy, and you know, this one has been harder already, and you had some stuff come up at the end of your pregnancy with Ivy. So like, I'm just kind of waiting to see like if something else like that happens. Mm-hmm. it's just like it's putting you and the baby at risk. And it's like, we're going to have 2 now if everything goes well. I hope it does, obviously. If everything goes well, we'll have 2, like a boy and a girl. It's just like, is it worth if you were perfectly like healthy and, like Samantha walking down the road or whatever, like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's more to do with your health than it is
like
just
knowing what could be.
right.
But, and so that's obviously, I get that. And that is why wisdom comes from him. And in that, we can't make that decision by ourselves in the way. Like, unless we felt for certain, like, no, like, we're not supposed to. Like, because he's telling us, like, don't, there's no, this is what I had for you, like, all this. But I feel like it's still out of our control. It's like in our control, but out of our control in a way.
Yeah.
So that's just something we're going to have to pray about. And I feel like he's going to give us a peace if we're supposed to have more, if we're not.
Yeah, for sure.
In that.
It's just kind of, because like I feel like a lot of people have the issue of like, should we have another one? Should we not? Or should we try to have another one, I guess I should say. But so like we have, like just for us, and there's people that have it way worse than us. I know that. But it's like for us, like we have that. And then it's like, then we have to also consider like your health. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm just like, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
Just
well, I mean, and me,
anyway.
I'm considering the babies we have. Like, I want to be able to be here.
Right.
And be present with them and disciple them and all that and be here for you. And so that's what I mean is it'd be easy for me to be like, yeah, no, we're done. Like, just in case. You know, we don't.
I think that it also has something to do with the fact that you got diagnosed and you went through all the diabetes stuff when you were pregnant with Ivy.
Yeah.
Like if you would have found out you were type 1 when you were 12 or something, and like you had it this whole time, the whole time I've known you, you've had it. Honestly, it might be, I might feel differently about it because I'm just thinking about that because like I know people would say like, well, it's a risk getting in the car every day to go somewhere.
Yeah,
it's a risk.
For sure.
Doing anything. And you're right. So I think I just have this like almost like I'm just scared of you being pregnant because that is when all these things happen to you.
Yeah.
You know?
But I look at it differently than that because for me, I was already going to have diabetes. I was pre-diabetic, which they said.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was either like Ivy literally was a miracle.
I know.
And for them to have found it because so many people aren't that lucky. Some people are hospitalized before they find out that they're type 1 diabetic.
Type 1. Yeah.
And so for me, it was the perfect
No, I mean, yeah,
way.
I know.
But I see how that it triggers things because it happened during pregnancy.
Yeah.
But I view it in a different way. Be like, well.
No, and I know like what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. And I agree with you. And I'm thankful that that's how we found out that you have type 1 because you're right. A lot of people, when they find out they have type 1, it's like a whole scare.
Yeah.
Like for your life.
I know. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm thankful that we didn't have to do that. But still, yeah, like I said, like if we would have had another girl, it would have been maybe a little bit easier to say, oh, should we try,
for a boy?
Try for a boy? Yeah. But it's like, we got one of each.
I do feel so content. And that's, I'm not looking forward to, I'm making that decision anytime soon.
No.
But I don't want to go do something permanent, like how people schedule like a vasectomy or hysterectomy or all that.
All that stuff.
I'm not even doing that because I'm like, I don't know if we're done.
Yeah.
So I could say right now, like, I feel like we could be, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So that we'll cross that bridge when we get there and see things could change our health or whatever. And so, but for now, it'll be just us little family of 4 plus Dolly.
Jeez, Dolly.
She got into these little stick things in our yard. Literally 100 of them.
Yeah.
I learned how to pick off her body. One
by one. Her hair is like actual Velcro.
Yeah.
So anything that has like something like that, it just sucks right up to her.
Okay. Also, this is funny that we've talked about seasons. Is that we've been thinking about seasons for the podcast.
Yeah.
Ironically, y'all, this is I felt on my heart today to talk about just a time time and seasons of things spiritually. But going off of, with the podcast, when we started, I was like, are we going to do seasons, or are we going to do just keep going until whatever? And, I just want what the Lord wants, and I've been praying about it. And the Salty Podcast is not going away, but I do feel like a season is coming to an end, figuratively, physically, spiritually, of this season of the podcast, because I feel like God is just wanting me to
be still.
Be still. Yeah, exactly that. Be still and hear him. And I feel like something is coming for the podcast in the way of a new season. So today is the last episode of the Salty Podcast of season 1. So we decided that we're doing seasons.
Yeah.
And then the good thing is with seasons, you can make them as long or as short as you want. But I've just been in a lot of prayer, and I spiritually just feel like I'm supposed to take a break, because I'm going to go through like a nurturing season, literally with the baby. But
yeah.
So it might start back before he's here.
No, hon. You're going to get pruned.
Yeah, it could be another pruning season. Yeah, all that. And I'm praying about what the next season will hold. I've been in my mind, I've been thinking about it being like more of a series. And so we'll do like a series in a season or whatever it is. I'm excited and eager to know what that is, but I'm kind of going to go through like a fasting period of the podcast for now, because
that's good.
I want it to be through him and for him. And I want what he has intended for it. And so I feel like if I'm not being obedient right now and I keep going, I'm not going to be able to fully hear what he's calling me to, if that makes sense.
It makes all the sense.
So I'm excited. I've been loving doing the podcast. It has been just a fun ministry. Love talking about Jesus, talking and meeting people about hearing their testimonies. So season 2 will come. I don't have a time yet, but y'all follow along still. Follow us on our platforms, and so you can be notified when season 2 starts back up. And it's going to be good. I'm excited because I know what he's working on in my heart right now is just a glimpse of what's to come.
Retweet.
Yeah. So I love you guys. Thank y'all for being here. Is there anything you want to say?
No.
Yeah. So I'm excited. We're going to take a few weeks off, and we'll catch you back for season 2 of the Salty Podcast.
Stay tuned for season 2 of the Salty Podcast with your host, Devin Cordell.
God bless y'all. Bye.
Bye.